Leases and licenses review. Page 18 of the agenda. Gee, you guys have been working hard to try and put something together here, by the way. And
Morning, board. Hi, morning.
speak to it, thank you.
Thank you. I'll take it that the report's read. So just to provide a bit of an overview of it. So the leases and licenses to occupy policy, we reviewed this as part of the long-term plan, the work we've been doing on the long-term plan. We've also did a workshop with council on the 6th of October around this policy as well. So we've had quite a bit of feedback along the way with it. We haven't changed a lot in the policy. It's really more around clarification, around like some of the eligibility criteria, some of the you know, what a community organisation means, and just really some editorial changes to improve the order of information and ensure that it's, you know, in line with our other policies and language and things like that. What I just want to bring to your attention, which I have worded in here, is that this policy also needs to be read in conjunction with the rates remission policy. So we've made some changes to that policy around the community board rates from organisations rates remissions. So what we've done there is we've tried to clarify it so that it makes it really much easier for community boards to understand, community groups to understand, you know, what they can apply for from a rates remission perspective, and it also makes it much easier for staff to administer. And we, in the past, with the long-term plan, the community boards have granted full rates remissions for a 3-year period to certain community organisations. This time we thought that it was probably a sort of a fair way of actually getting those groups to apply for those remissions, rather than that just be, you know, anybody can, you know, just decide who can apply. Then we looked at the policies as well. There wasn't a policy that covered how we've been doing it in the past, so we're just trying to tidy it all up and make it fairer and make it more organised, so that it's clear not only for the people approving the remissions, but also for the people applying. So, if the community organisation leases a council property, and they wish to apply for a rates remission, then that will come back to the community boards for a decision on those remissions. If it's a community group that you know, doesn't rent or lease council property, then that will go to the Audit Risk Committee, because it's under a different category for them. It's under financial hardship categories, so which is a new policy that we've added to the remission policy.
So in terms of just clarification on one, which is community groups that do lease council properties, all community groups are going to be notified in relationship to being able to apply for a rates remission, and you would expect that everyone will. So in essence, really, it's saying that follow the correct process. You have to apply, you're given a grant, and you'll get your remission. That's the type of process that... not entirely. It wasn't our intent to go out to all community groups and offer them the remission. The remission is there in a policy for those groups to apply for if they fit the criteria. So it's not just because you're a community group that you can apply. There's a lot of criteria around that. Well, that's the question then, is what was the criteria? I haven't got a copy of what that criteria is. Yeah, that's in the rates remission policy, okay. which was out for consultation for a period of time. All good. Because I wondered what.
And has that been finalised yet?
No, it hasn't been finalised yet. We're just working through some of the submissions now, and those policies are going back to council, I believe, on the 8th of December.
Right. That's good. Done. Any further questions from everyone?
So do I understand you said that the applications will come in, and if it was, because I didn't quite get whether you said community organisation, some of it would come to the board and some of it would be done by audit and risk.
Yes, that's correct. So if it's a group that leases council property,
Like the Citizens Advice Bureau, for example, it's on our land, isn't it?
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
It would then those applications would come back to the community board for a decision.
Yes, I just didn't quite get
that. That's fine.
For some reason, the criteria has escaped my notice. With it.
So this, just to be clear, this policy that we're talking about now is not the rates remission policy. It is the leases and licensing policy. I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that, for community groups that are under that fall under our leases and licensing policy, that there is that change as well. We wanted to make sure that these two policies align because previously they didn't. So
Excellent.
just to make it clear.
Yep.
Okay.
Everyone okay? And then there is a suggested resolution here. Will I move from second to that resolution?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And Ron second. That's it. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Might be using suspensives on the outside of one thing.
Amended lease 4.1, the decision has been to defer that item until after the workshop. The reason we'd like to defer it is there's some discussion happening around the airfield, the designations, the new planning, and that if anything comes out of that discussion that might impact on what's being recommended in 4.1, will be a lot more up to speed with that. So I thought it would be a very good decision to actually just defer that item, then we'll go back into that item. So what we'll do is adjourn the meeting at the end of it, and then go into our workshop, and then reconvene the meeting and close after that item. So that's what's going to happen. Is that all right with everybody? So I'll go straight to Thames Community Board Work Programme.
Morning, board. I'll make this quick because I know I'm competing with a little bird outside the window who just keeps tapping in the buttons. It's very distracted. And I can't compete with a little bird who's tapping on the window. So again, I think I probably talked about it last month. This work program, we're just in the middle of, I suppose we're still kind of finalising and tweaking and trying to make it better and better. We've added some more columns last month around some more financials, who the project's managed by, completion dates, things like that. So it's getting better, it's not perfect. There was an error in one of them, which I see was updated. I don't know if that's been updated in everyone's copy or not, but there was, my team put some comments in one of the boxes that was wrong, which is now.
I noticed that under the wall.
That's it, yeah, that's the one. But I see I'm online, so my one's updated correctly, but I just thought I'd raise that in case any of the paper copies had, obviously had that error in them. But yeah, I'm happy to take any questions on any of the projects.
So that error was under total value.
It was, yeah, so I'm not quite sure what happened there, but
and the description was not related to that.
yeah, one of the Total Valley projects had the wrong description, referencing a harbour or a wharf or something like that. Yeah, so apologies about that, but the comment should have been the same as to all the other Total Valley ones, which is extension of service.
So is there anything there, Bruce, that you want to bring to our attention before we ask questions?
No, I'm happy to take questions at this stage. Things are starting to kind of ramp up now. We're constantly juggling the LTP and all the work that's required for the LTP around projects, and putting forward projects with delivering the projects this year. So we've kind of got through most of that stuff on the lead-in project works for the LTP. So now the project team are actually back on doing their projects. So yes, we're moving forward.
So there's some confidence about meeting the completion dates except for
there's not too many. I suppose the ones that I'm not fully up to speed with the latest on is probably the two toilets, which is Ross Ashby. So I've tried to get an update from him, which I haven't managed to obtain yet. So those ones, I don't really have too much detail for you, but I'm happy to come back once I have that detail. So those two are the ones that, for me, are ones that kind of stand out a little bit, but I need to keep a close eye on. But the rest of them, actually, I'm relatively comfortable that we're moving through them fine.
Okay, so if you could just direct some questions through the chair and then to Bruce, it'd be fine. Which way do we want to go? You lead first.
So just clarifying, all these 30th of June completion dates.
Yes.
You're going to refine those.
Yeah, as we go. So you should see there's one or two in there which have got dates that are sooner than that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the idea is that as they kind of start moving through it, they'll get a greater clarity around when they'll actually finish it and go, actually, we're not going to go all the way to 30 June now, it's going to be 31st of March.
When, like, we haven't done that meeting yet.
No.
Because as I look at this concerns me, because all the projects are green because they're all finishing on the 30th of June.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we're supposed to be,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You know, as from a government's point of view.
So one of the tweaks that that the team need to get over the top of, and I'm pushing them on, is around the rag status, around the red, amber, green. You know, making sure that they're actually looking at that a little bit better and putting in what I believe we need to be doing there, because some of them won't be green. But I take your point. You know, if we've got them all out at 30 June at the moment, we can just have them green. So the team know. Like I work closely with the project team, with Andrew Bowden and his team, to make sure we're not just going 30 June all green and then suddenly on the 1st of June, so all shivers, they've all gone red and we're not going to deliver them. So, so that won't happen.
When do you think you'll have realistic dates in there?
I think we'll have a much better handle before we get to Christmas on that stuff.
And is there some way we're able to get an update of that? Because our next meeting's not until.
Doesn't it come through the council weekly update?
Not this format doesn't go through the council with the
I can
update,
send it out if you.
but we can send it out. Like when's your next meeting? Is it February or something? Is it? March. Okay,
March.
so that's quite far
I
away.
think.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll
That's
update it.
just,
I have to look.
something that's floating.
Is it February?
What we'll do, Peter, we'll update it before Christmas, then we'll just get a copy out.
Yeah.
Just email it out to the board, so you guys know, this is where
You
we're at.
update it before Christmas and we get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that.
Definitely.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that's quite a big gap over that peak period for you guys to not have any updates on this stuff.
Be good to actually know just when our next meeting is, because I know it's a big gap, isn't it? It's,
I've got some.
December, January, February.
February. Send them out. She can send them out.
No, it's fine. Remind us of the game. Has anyone got any other points of clarification?
At least I've got a calendar invite for that day, so I'm going to be here.
She sent a whole lot of emails, which is in the
Yeah.
repeat them, they slot them
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
Bruce, the Coastal Valley extensions, is that the preliminary work to the long-term plan that it's all going to go ahead with?
Yeah, it is, and it's a little bit of work on the intersection as well. So it's a lot of design, finalising designs for infrastructure upgrades, as well as work on that intersection. So, so the team are working closely with Waka Kotahi, ZTA, to try and expedite that.
So what we're saying is, even though it's not set yet where Tokyo sits in the long-term plan, because we're struggling
Yes,
with where it fits
Yeah, great.
and its relevance, this money that we're spending now is, it's really important that it's not a waste of money.
Yeah, I just, for through the chain, it's not going to be a waste of money, you know what I mean? Because things are happening up there. We need to do some upgrades. The question is how much, how big are the upgrades? How much, because any of these kind of future development areas that we actually really need in Thames, we have to get to a point where we can try and back a winner, you know what I mean? And, I'm not really big gambler, but like there is a call where you've got to make a call, because otherwise you do nothing.
Yeah, and it just strikes me, whilst we're working with NZTA, we don't want to lose that focus. Let's get that done, and then who knows?
Because often you get the remote, you can get something done, and then we'll get you on to the next bit, So it's you tell it and then go on, So yeah.
So you, also the consent renewals are all on
Yeah, and then wheels are as on track as they ever can be. It's always tricky to know with consent renewals what delays you're going to get, because it is for delays to creep in when you're dealing with different parties, regional council, consultation with stakeholders, all those kind of things. So, but at this stage, everything's kind of moving forwards. They always take way longer than what we'd like to take. So we've learned over the last 5 or 10 years that we can't be so aspirational. I think we're going to get things through.
So how long has Waikato Regional Council been dragging the chain?
I'm not over top of the detail, and there's some that have been sitting with them for a while, but often it's, they'll request a bit more information, we have to go away and get it, and so delays do creep in on both sides, so I'd never say it's all WIC or anything like that.
That's sure.
Yeah, things can take a while to come out, like we took 8 or 9 months to get consent. This is over for trial coins in Thames-Coromandel over at Mercury Bay, so that took us kind of 8 or 9 months to get consent for those. So things can take a while to go through that pipe.
So as this is the last community board meeting pre the summer, what messages infrastructure-wise do we need to know so that we're feeding the community in terms of water, wastewater, rubbish? Is there anything that we need to be?
Yeah. So there's lots of information that the comms team are working hard to try and get all that stuff out. We've seen some of that stuff starting to come out already around water, starting to kind of seed these ideas with the community and get stuff out there. But I think it's definitely something we can look at for elected members to make sure if there's a little package we should give you before summer. As far as Thames specifically, water supply won't be an issue in Thames, but it shouldn't be. The challenge for Thames, I think, water supply is going to be, and we can handle it, is the demand for tankered water for other areas. So other communities, like happened last summer, other communities that can't, that are running out of water in their tanks, people who aren't connected to a network, suddenly they want water, they'll bring up a water tanker company who will then get in touch with us and say, we want to fill up with water, can we fill up in Whitianga? We'll say, no, you can't, because we've already got a lot of pressure on us in Whitianga, so you might have to drop the Thames, which then adds a cost on. And I don't know whether you say it's a direct connection, that cost that they're paying, or whether it's a supply and demand story during a big period when a lot of people are asking for water. The rate seems to be fairly high rate for water during that big period. So someone was telling me the other day that they paid $900 for a tank load of water. So it wasn't even a tank load, actually, it was less than that. But so Thames will help support those other areas from water supply, and we can do that. Wastewater, there should be no issues. Refuse generally in Thames is pretty fine. Thames population, as you guys know, either stays flat or actually goes down a bit. There's a number of people who've got properties on the eastern seaboard and they leave town during that time. So our Thames population sometimes actually drops a little bit in the peak period. So you guys are in a good situation infrastructure-wise to get through the peak.
Yeah, I worry about up the coast in terms of people on limited water supplies or tanks. Yeah. And they got used during COVID as in an emergency management situation that they received water. Yes. Yeah. And so that messaging around if you are on your own, if you run out of water, are you not? Yeah. I think is something that would be good if we're all articulating the same message. Yeah, I think so, and I think there'll be stuff going out, like around Gary and his team, around, obviously a welfare focus, and like you say, Sally, knowing how things went through COVID on the back end of last summer, people were struggling with their tanks, then I think we will have that situation again. I mean, the good thing for Thames Coast perspective is that they're close to Thames. So the cost shouldn't be that high to get. They come from Thames anyway, the tankers, fill up the Thames coast. So hopefully that's all manageable and people are, not having to pay too much for water for tanks if they need it. It's a challenge, though, it really is.
Yeah. And thanks for that, Phil. Any other questions for Bruce while he's here? Those you have a week. Program? No? All right. And move and second for recommendations.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Seconded, thanks Robin. Thanks Bruce.
Okay, thank you.
That's all right, thank you. Action schedule 6.1. 36. Take it as being read. Ariana, is there anything to add to it? Any questions? Can we add to it?
Yes, absolutely. This
Um,
is the opportunity to say.
Right. Well, a couple of things is, one is just a request from Thames Community Board to ask staff about what engagement process might take place with the Community Board, or how that engagement might take place with Thames Community Board regarding to long-term plan consequences, especially as it relates around our capital projects. I'd just like to know just what feedback the Community Board will get with those. Although a lot of the decisions have been made, it's just the where, what and how the suggestions have come through in relationship to some of the workshops that have taken place with long-term planning. And I think it'd be nice to actually put the Community Board and get some sort of feedback. And how you would do that, I don't know, between now and Christmas, because we haven't got any meetings scheduled.
Yes,
We've got a workshop.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
For long-term plan stuff. And I think we're planning that workshop to be, we had a date, didn't we, 25th of,
23rd of Southern Illinois.
and that would be an opportunity to do that. So that's good.
And that's in the morning, because in the afternoon is the shore management plan.
Right. So that's probably not requiring a specific request, I think that's.
No, that's where the chair discussion was straight was that it provided should be for our council as to provide feedback to the board around what's happened at the previous workshop. So there was no way of getting information to the board.
Okay. So that's all good, everyone.
Does
There was
the,
some question of the Treasury. Is that something you would just pick up through the long-term process? Because that's going to be an add-on.
I think, that whole thing about what's in our OPEX and what isn't, is an answer we'll be looking forward tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so there's the treasury is probably the main one. I was thinking about, our plan of how do we action things that have been brought up with, in public forums. So you've got Clancy, and I know that the Roman people are onto that, etc. But does the community want that on the action plan so that we don't forget it? And the other one was Althea's work around the cemeteries. Do we want to just put it there so that we don't forget about helping her link in and make that happen? Because it is a very historic cemetery.
And you would say the same about Adrian with his.
Yeah, absolutely, because that makes a lot of sense as well. And even if it's sorry, we can't do it, I just stand closing the loop. I'm not saying any of those aren't good, but I'm just saying that that was one of our goals, wasn't it? Was to get better at actually feeding back and being honest.
Good point.
And potentially that can might help to get people disillusioned with volunteering and helping out and just going, bother it, can't be bothered doing this, no one listens to what I say. If we lose these old volunteers then, yeah.
So can I just ask a question here then? So we've been over a year on public forums. All these people that have come in and sat down, have we not done anything for them? And how have they known if we've done something wrong? Because
Yes.
now they're putting it on an action plan that we've never had for a whole year on an action schedule.
I think we've responded to most cases. haven't we?
Yeah.
And on reaction is the moment is the one that's happened.
Yeah. And then we have.
But that's
you show up through that.
Sorry, Peter.
I'm just saying, Sally points to a good point. So what is Clancy asking us to do?
Well, my understanding is that he was wanting to refresh in our minds that how crucial that 50 is.
Yeah.
We've heard that, so we take that back. The engineers here, he's talked to Clancy, they're exchanging emails, and it's now up to us to, but we've been trying for years to get this done, but somehow, so I think it's on the cards, but how do we not just let it?
So are you saying that we, the community board, are referring that through to council to sort out?
Yes, via staff and via us. And I know, for example, that the mayor has written a letter supporting around the supported lifestyle trust around pedestrian costs. So, but it is how do you actually not leave it to chance, but to actually have and that's what we're trying to nail down.
Well, yeah, it's kind of saying, so we're saying, and we've heard that, and we're saying the appropriate action sits with the council, and we will expect to hear back at the next meeting, I guess.
That's right, and so if it's on the action sheet, well then, and we should be having a response by February. Is that a good idea?
Yeah.
I think that's I think that works. I think you put it on your action schedule. You don't need to go to the council or anything, so staff are here, we heard it, he's already working on it. He's already connected with Fancy on that.
Yeah.
And you're right, the next meeting will be the action schedule, and you can say, well, what's happening, you know, and we're going to say, this is where it's at, this is what's happening. So we haven't been able to move it forward, or we have, or it can come off, or it can close.
Yeah, well, so if we ask the same question about Adrian, what was he asking us?
He wants some support. I don't know.
Yes, I mean, that's,
He was very clear because he said he wants native plantings, he wants to use less weed killer along there and wants help with volunteer support and maintenance. So easy.
So
that's also eroding, because I'm guessing that is road reserve as opposed to Derek Thompson's parks and reserves. So that's another one for roading. And if that's on the action sheet, well, we need to work through that with that team and report back as well. I think it's a really good idea, and I think it's another one.
And it also, but what in it? It's kind of what does the solution look like? What does a possible solution look like? Which may be, you know, the council provide plants and community dig holes and plant it or something like that.
That's right.
So yeah, so somehow, yeah, so that goes to Rody for a potential solution that we could then feed back to Adrian.
But I think also, yes, and I think also it needs a champion. Like who's the champion that's actually going to move that along?
Right. Well,
So really what's been
if we're going to assign champions, I'd be happy. Somebody would need to champion Clancy's thing. Somebody needs to champion healthier.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, make sure they follow through on.
What's that?
I nominate. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, do we have to have someone for each, someone from the community board for each of these items?
Not
I mean,
necessarily.
you're all deciding amongst yourselves, and maybe, you know, you might have some comments to make here about
Sorry,
the
Mr. Chair.
progress, the progress relating to something like this, and how we take it up. Do we take it up in our action plan? Go to staff and ask for advice.
Yes, through the chair, yes, so we'll continue to put my action schedule around assessing on that, and we can put it to the right touch point in council to progress that.
So some assurances that in fact that's what happened, that's what the community board is asking. Because there's all sorts of issues relating to that area of land which is owned by the trotting club, the jockey club, and the road verge would be our responsibility, there's no doubt about that. So I just don't know where all that sits. And the other one was a community project, which was excellent, wasn't it? It was amazing. You know, so yeah. So we could just leave that with the appropriate staff to advise on. The big thing is it's followed up, and that's what everyone's concerned about. Right, anything else that we feel needs to be added to the action schedule that's important to us? And the big one that concerns us all is the long-term plan. We have some feedback coming on, to us on the 25th of November. What the strategic planning team have got to deal with, especially Donna, and putting all this together is Thames has requested 4 major projects, and that's TOTRA extensions. If they go ahead, you know, there's some ducks in the road needs to be lined up there. There's Rhodes Park and how to consider that longer term. There's the swimming pool and how to consider that longer term, and then there's the streetscape stuff that may go in the first 3-year program of what we're doing. And the issue there is any of that type of work is going to cost the ratepayer. And the question actually needs to be raised, and of course the question needs to be raised that they will be asking as well is this untenable, is it tenable? And the message I would say from the community board is whether it's tenable or untenable is for ratepayers to decide, because at the end of the day we can only put it out there for those questions to be asked. So if in fact we're looking at $5 million, for example, we go into the streetscape program, and there are other issues related to that in terms of underground infrastructure and the contiguous nature of, you know, replacing some of that underground infrastructure if we're going to do a streetscape over the top of it. If it does go into the first 3-year program of what we're doing, which the community board has expressed that would like to happen, then it just the overall cost to the ratepayer to actually do that versus district versus local. And then moving on to a swimming pool, for example, if it goes into year 4 or 5 with an impact on rates of $200 a ratepayer, should it go in there? And then moving on to Rhodes Park, knowing that in fact that's going to be a priority one day and somehow needs to be flagged, because like it or not, Thames can't do without, you know, really good sports fields for Thames, and it's going to have to be relocated. We're only shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't suggest some reality around that in terms of what might happen in 4, 5, 6 or 7 years' time. So these are huge challenges for both us and the staff to work through, is the way I see it. Hugely challenging for them because they just see these figures, you know, with brain explosions happening in everything else.
So can I just say 2 minutes about that? I think that to save brain explosions on the 25th or whenever, because, you know, your brain's quite important, we are in a situation where the LTP, we're really looking at the CapEx side of things very much as absolute essentials like water, wastewater, storm, you know, all of that, and the must-haves. And also the other side of the ledger, which is really going to be important, but potentially we're going to have to make our brains bigger, is how do we increase revenue so we're not dependent on the ratepayer for things to happen. So tomorrow's workshop is around things like user pays for various things, like boat ramps, like parking, like things. So please try and what I'm trying to do for tomorrow is go with an open mind and not think, oh, Thames will never have that, or something like that, because our balance sheet without more revenue is quite on the ugly side. And yeah, so I'm just trying, we're doing our best and it's tight and we well know people's struggles, but also don't promise lower rate increases either, because we either do this work or we don't, and our town doesn't survive. So it, that's just sort of the world according to itself.
And to let you know as a board that I'll be attending that meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, that's cool.
To connect, you know, what we need as a Thames community board for it. And it does get down to that nice to have versus must have. And I look at all those 4 projects and say they are must haves. But then you look or drill down underneath it, perhaps a couple of them, one of them in particular, may not be, you know, and at the end of the day, you sort of, but, you know, even though it may not be, you wouldn't like to see Thames without a bike system, for example, you know, so at the end of the day, it's some big questions, that's all I'm asking, big challenges.
Sally, can I ask you, sorry, is there any option, or have there been any option to continue the 4-year lease on the next extension deal?
You could say that there are quiet negotiations moving forward about how to balance our time there. So, yes.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, just following up from what Sally said, I think, and Don will probably correct me if I'm wrong, but in the long-term plan budgets we were seeing, we're looking at roughly the rates between now and the end of the 10-year plan was going to be paying approximately half as much again as what we were currently paying. Going from around 2,000 odd to around 3,000 odd.
Something like that,
Yeah.
that would be roughly.
Yeah. So that's the kind of message that, you know, we
that might be the reality call in terms of just if you're going to have some of these things. And that's what
So I think that whole languaging, but I think the crucial thing is for us all to be understanding that, and so just, yeah. And so I think hopefully in that workshop, because some people know heaps about finance, other people don't. You know, people rave on about CapEx and net benefit and OpEx and that. If you don't know what that is, ask, because you can bet your bottom dollar you're not the only one in the room that doesn't know. People probably quite, you know, so please let's have it all out there so we're all on the same page. That's all I'm asking for.
Absolutely, so. Right. All right, no other questions, please. So there's a suggested resolution that says the actual schedule report, there's nothing to be added, so I'll move and
Just
second
the
that.
4 items that we
Yep.
discussed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mover,
Yes.
Sheree. Thank you. Members' reports. So some of us have tabled, or when I say tabled, written ones, written report, mine has been written. Any questions related to what's on my report? It's all pretty straightforward. Good, going on. Anyone like to speak to their reports? Sheree, I'll go around the table. Yep.
Just from me, and I just wanted to say that I attended our induction meeting in Peter, the Shoreline panel. Very interesting stuff going on. And of course, we all went to the site visits, which talks a lot about planning, everybody's planning. So yeah, it's really cool. Stepping away from that, I had a discussion with Hannah Rose and Erin, and this is at the time when they were sitting down in the little black box on the corner. And I pushed them into creating a netball team out to Thames Business House. So the netball team is called Create the Vibe. The team is actually a lot of council staff. As an umpire, I'm running along the court my new Create the Vibe t-shirt. It's really cool. The staff members and their partners, they've been out at Rhodes Park every Wednesday night since the competition started on the 14th of October, and it will run to the 16th of December for finals. Looking at the numbers at the moment, Create the Vibe is actually sitting at the top of their grade, so I've asked two of the staff that come along, because there's quite a number of players, to start bringing, what are those things? Cheer the pom-poms. And we said to one of the guys that was there, I'll bring some out for you so that you can cheer the team. I also attended the Harrogate.
So were we invited to be team members?
No. You're welcome to come out and
Just
support.
want to be clear.
Please do come and support.
What time?
So the game tonight is at 1:30 on court 1.
Oh, that's the same time as all.
Maybe what we could do is send you guys the draw.
Yeah,
that's
If
it.
you feel fun, there's a lot of teams out there at the moment.
Can I yell?
Could it be
Yes,
Zoom?
and bring a phone.
You can be a cheerleader.
Yeah, exactly.
Pardon?
Free or not?
Yes, but no. But the bar is open. Rugby stuff.
Please send the schedule around so that we
Interesting
can.
This Thames Business House thing has been running for some years, the Thames Business House people. Last year we had 26 teams playing, this year we've only got about 14 or 15, I think. And it's just due to that whole COVID thing. I attended Harrogate Justice Peace Association AGM, and I'm now the new JP Council of Teams. And I attended my first ever 100th birthday celebration for American Pony out at the Booms. And what was most interesting about attending such a milestone is the display of courage from the family, who delight in sharing the history of their upbringing, the challenges of the era faced by not only them but Centennial, and what they believe are the secrets to longevity. And the last thing is I've had a call from Russell Seat and John and Dale will be retiring, and they will be holding a function on December the 8th. I'll come back with some more details around that, because as Russell said, everybody who is part of the will welcome to come. Thank you.
Well done on the young team.
It's great. It's great. That's what it's all about. And Rose Park.
I've already taken mine.
Yeah.
It's been very quiet.
So I think I mentioned reports, but I think what I said before was my report, really. Yes, yeah, get that to.
Highlights, isn't it, really? Martin? You've been attending a lot of stuff.
I once again have only done it the last minute. For me, the highlights was the various heritage meetings and AGMs. I think I attended 3 in one weekend. Pretty much went from one to the next. And you being at the Heritage Trust AGM, it was probably one of the more interesting AGMs I've ever been to. But yeah, as they were saying, there does seem to be a much better appreciation that around sustainability, and I see very much they're working towards that. And then it was quite interesting going to the steam up out at the Gold Mine Experience, and Alan Young wanted to make sure that everyone knew about that, and I think we got it through the comms team a few days before. And their whole thing is making sure that the projects and things they're working on are sustainable and that they can do them themselves. Obviously, they've got blokes and people that can build things, put it together, but doing it within that, within their current income stream. So it did seem quite an interesting contrast between the groups. But yeah, if you haven't been out to the Gold Mine Experience, I would very strongly recommend it. There was the mini Steampunk Festival, which came about, as some of you probably know, because when they announced that they were cancelling the main one, they had a number of people get in touch with them saying, well, look, we've really booked our accommodation, we're coming to Thames anyway, have you got some things we could put on things? And so a few groups stepped up and did some events. which was great. And there was also a couple of road closures down at Grahamstown, one for the Thames Market, which I would say probably a good 95% of people I spoke to on the day, I spent most of the morning down there, were like, you know, how come it's taken me 25 years to do it? Don't do it every week, but maybe pick 4, 5, 6 occasions during the year and do them then. And then there was a smaller closure of Parhouse Street last weekend, well, this weekend we've just had for some teapot races and various other little events, so that was quite cool. And carrying on from Clarice's thing about the netball, I went along to see pickleball being played at the Jack McLean Centre on Tuesday. So every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, a group of people go along and do that. And yeah, I think we should try to get some Thames Community Board people along there to play that. It's great fun. It's kind of like tennis, but with a smaller bat and a bouncier ball. So that's good fun. Only other thing I had at a Heritage Network meeting, I got bailed up about why there's now been a delay. Oh no, sorry, it was at the Business After 5. I got bailed up why there's now been a delay about the Rotary Harrogate Rail Trail seats. So there was originally a plan to have it out by the Copeland Bridge. Then there was a new plan to put it somewhere along by Maramarahi Road. Is that right?
You mean the shelters?
Yeah, the shelter.
Yeah, that's all on track. Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's gone off track again.
No, well, I went out and had a meeting with Diane Drummond and Warren couldn't be there, Warren Sly, but Jerry was there, Jerry Thompson.
Yes,
whatever.
I'm not
And that's all.
Yeah, I'm
that's
not
all
aware
on
of
track
that off the road.
in terms of.
Well, they were talking about potentially NZTA putting a roundabout at that intersection, and so therefore the seat couldn't be there.
It's Maramarahi Road.
Yeah, it was something that was a surprise to me, and I had to confess complete ignorance and said that I
Well, I haven't heard about that, sorry.
I'm happy to check with,
Hello?
actually, for the election schedule, if you'd like us to check with Derek,
Yeah.
who's the status.
Yeah, that'd be good.
We're meeting with Derek and flying from the truck from the Nebraska, so.
Warren was, Warren wasn't overly impressed.
Okay,
I'm
I'm
not
not
sure
sure.
why the roundabout's going to be there. It's like, it's one road and it turns off. It's
Yeah,
not like the whole-
this was just, yeah.
Something might have thought, I
I was just standing there going,
I can, through the chair if I may, NZTA is their most recent transport plan for the country has said that just bear with me whilst I pull up the map. The current roundabout, State Highway 2526 is not in for any changes as far as I can make out. The temporary roundabout they put in on 2625A, which runs into Kirikiri West Road as well, and the bridge just to the south of them on State Highway 26 is in their land transport plan for improvement. Now, my understanding is they don't know the full detail of that, but it's likely that it's going to be of a similar size to the one at, just to the north.
no,
So there's going to be some substantial changes there. As I say, I'm not being able to find any details. It is in the list of things to do. I suspect that this time it's very much not being designed. So anyone that's saying that the roundabout is going to cause a seat to move, I think it's making a
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's nothing about any roundabouts suitable in that.
Not as far as I'm aware, no.
We'll follow up.
That's also.
I just assume the chair, while the chair is left.
Oh,
Yes, that's your job.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I sent around a member's report, which you've all read obviously and committed to memory. There were two things that I wanted to raise. Actually, Sally sort of grabbed my thunder and ran with it when you were talking about the need to consult the community on a bunch of different things. And so those conversations are starting now. The other thing that I've engaged with recently is Regional Council took a bus tour of the district, and I met them at Wanatara on a very windy afternoon, and we looked at the wall and we talked about winter and innovation. But that was very nice in terms of being able to meet Regional Council and start to have a conversation, and there was a definite feeling there that Regional Council want to talk to us, which was nice. But the other thing, I've been engaging with the young elected members, because I can. Sorry, I know, I didn't drop it. And the thing that I've really been noticing about the young elected members, so that's people under 40 who are across the country, they've got a very active Facebook group, and all of the issues that we're experiencing here are not in isolation. Everybody is struggling with increased infrastructure need versus not wanting to have rates increases and so on and so on. And it's that, from my point of view, is quite reassuring to know that, yes, we have things here and we have sensitive issues and we have people not wanting to do this and wanting to do that. And it's just nice to know that everybody's like us. We are special.
I think it goes back to 2018.
Sorry,
Yep.
I had to take that call.
Far out.
All right. Yes, thank you. No, that's it.
Thanks, Robin. So to you, Mr. Chair. Anything else happened to us?
I perfectly but it looks like it's mute. Can you please mute from your end, Lorna and Sean? Because I can't seem to do it from here. Sorry, Robin.
No, it's okay. Yep.
Wasn't just.
This is still doing it. It's Robin's turn.
nothing to add to what's on the report.
Can I,
Sorry?
I was going to ask you a question about your report.
Sure.
I was just interested in the thorough around the Business Association, and so I don't know if now's the time to get involved, but really interested in your thinking around the market and how we as a community board can discuss at some stage where we sit with all of that, because it strikes me that the Business Association has quite a strong view, and I don't know what the community board's view is, so I would like to pick that up and discuss that at some stage. And the airfield, obviously we have workshop opportunities, so just interested in your sense of how the Business Association is going as well. Just in, we've been recorded, I imagine. Yes.
So what's the question around?
How do you think the Business Association's going?
So I think it's up in my report. After the last meeting, I met with the chair of the board because I had some disquiet, and I think some other members had some disquiet about how things were going. And I think the result of that meeting was that the chair felt that there was not sufficient focus of the Business Association on some key things, that it was too broad and what have you. She was going to be taking that to the board meeting with a view to, I suppose, prioritising the things that need to be happening. Now I haven't had a catch up since then, and I think that in the report there is the quarterly report, was the report that was done for Erin, which reflects a very broad lot of stuff going on, and it was up to September, so that was reflecting the way things were at that point. I can't report back on whether I'm seeing a narrowing onto the key things that they like.
Because what the community board will have to be really clear about the Treasury and the Business Association, because those are the two sort of things other than the Citizens Advice Bureau that will be in or will not be in future funding in our OPEX. So that's why I was really interested in that, because we're going to have to land something at some point.
So through the chair, I have monthly meetings with Teams Business Associations, maybe we could have a discussion.
Yeah, cool. Excellent.
Yes, and remember that there's been subject to an update to the community board itself in terms of our stake in it, by the Business Association to structure that in early next year or something like that. Just a progressive update, how they're going, where they're at, that type of thing. Whether that's a suggested thing better now, I think I
can I just add something else to, I seem to be getting, and I don't know particularly other people, but I seem to be getting a lot of people coming to me about things that they perhaps should be going directly to council about through a request for service or something, or and they put something in an email to me, which I end up handing on to Erin, and they're all manner of different things from all sorts of people that you kind of bump into, and you're on the community board. Well, I mean, last night somebody was saying, have you seen the roundabout at Coburg? Is the council doing anything about cleaning it up or something like that? So hey, do a request for service and things like that, but getting all sorts of stuff. I've been firing stuff off to Erin, and they've been being picked up on, and either a direct response going back to Houston, or I'm able to give them a response, which I appreciate. But I don't know, are other people experiencing that sort of thing?
Sorry.
I was more wanting to know what the lines of communication are in terms of this report. Do you receive this report, Erin? Was it sent directly to Peter?
Sorry.
No, the Business Association.
I know I've received
First quarter progress report.
I received.
Okay, so why this report probably would be a better place to be on our agendas. I think just as an update, as opposed to having come through Peter, KPIs and whatever, and all that sort of thing. I just think should be part of our report in terms of the state that we have in it. It would be a better way of feedback, I think, to be part of, just updates.
So through the chair, we could perhaps request as per action schedule that send it in that perhaps the chair and the CE, just so you can ask me questions and things like that. We wouldn't know that.
Yeah, I just think each time we get a quarterly report, it should go into the next. Next. Community board agenda, and Peter can speak to it, or that type of thing. It's really good. Yeah. Any other things? Thanks, Peter. It was a really detailed report. Some good work going on there. Just to reiterate with yours, Robin, thanks for all the input that you have with different community groups and Mark and power of strength there, and what you've been attending, and thank you very much.
Can't say no.
On the eastern seaboard with regarding coastal stuff, and it's all really good stuff, all interconnecting really well, and being able to relate to our concerns as an area here, as you put those things through, Sally, fantastic, so keep it up. That's all I can say. Good. Yeah. And so members' reports.
Yes, you do.
I'll move that we move into public excluded.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
And so we're there.
Just give me a moment because I will stop the recording.
Right.